Hello and welcome to our Commander Legends set review. Before we begin, this is a Highlander specific set review. We're not reviewing these cards in the scope of Commander or Legacy, and we're only interested in how these cards work in Highlander formats. This review is not exhaustive, but we'll be looking at cards that might have a home in existing archetypes. I'm joined by channel regulars Jordan, Julian, and Alex. We'll be giving each of the cards we review a letter grade. A's are for slam dunks that are playable in multiple decks and across multiple archetypes. B's are playable in some archetypes but might not be an all-star in any of them. And C's are for when you need an additional copy of an existing effect. Let's get to it. So first up, we've got Akroma, Vision of Ixidor. It's a big 6/6 angel for 7 mana. It's got flying, first strike, vigilance, and trample. And at the beginning of each combat until the end of the turn, each other creature you control gets +1/+1 if it has flying, +1/+1 if it has first strike, and so on. For double strike, death touch, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, protection, reach, trample, vigilance, and partner.
Personally, I can't help but see this card and just wish it had some sort of like way to protect itself.
Man, I wish it had flash so bad.
I wish it had flash. I wish it had hexproof. I wish it had anything to make it like a little bit stickier, because I think that's what in effect like this for 7 mana really needs.
So I thought that because it's an Ixidor card and Ixidor's whole thing is morph, I really thought it was going to have morph. I was
super cool.
I was almost
actually
convinced. One thing I will say just about this card is that it not having haste is so detrimental, because I can't see a deck that this goes into.
I think this is like a reanimated target, but even then, its abilities lend itself towards having a big board and not just one big thing.
I feel like there's just a lot better things to reanimate than this card.
I think this card definitely suffers from a density issue where it's like, well, okay, I could reanimate this, or I could reanimate Trench Gorger, which is bigger and dumber, but in all reality, you could animate this, you could animate like Jingataxis.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm just seeing this in a deck that plays just all these keyword monsters that just incidentally have a lot of words on them, like Crystalline Giant or like Questing Beast.
True.
And then it just makes them like super nasty, but I'm not like blown away by this. Like it's a lot of
people are going to hate me for this, but I could see this as maybe a top end in like any Canlander deck that's playing Rick.
Oh, I hate you so much, Julian.
7 mana?
That's
so
a lot.
Much.
It's so like, much. Maybe Big White. I mean, Jordan is the one among us who is proficient in the ways of Big White, so I'm wondering what he has to say about it.
Yeah, I'm floating somewhere in the neighborhood of C minus C. I don't love it in any deck unless you're playing like King keyword deck with like Audric and whatever. I don't. Really
I wish this was 1 mana less, and maybe you cut like first strike from it.
Yeah, and cut like, a power and a toughness.
Yeah, like I would love this card.
Yeah. Okay, so if we could all give it like a letter grade, what are you thinking?
I'm gonna give it a D. I don't think it's that good. I think at 5, maybe even 6 mana, if I'm being generous, this could be a sweet card. But I think it's just too expensive for what it does.
Yeah, very similar. I actually like this card a lot less. I'm almost saying like D minus. It's not stone unplayable. Like you could play it, but I just don't see why you would. It doesn't draw me towards playing it, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm right there with you. I think it's like a C minus, maybe C plus if you're actually doing the thing that it is trying to do. But let's move on to our next card. So we've got Akroma's Will. This is the first card in the sort of cycle of wills that we'll be talking about. I think we've included all of them in our like review sheet. So Akroma's Will is 4 mana for a instant. It says choose one. If you control your commander, you can choose both basically. So notably about these, or what's notable about these will cards is that in a format like Highlander or Cube or anything really outside of Commander for that matter, you only ever get to choose one. So we're evaluating these cards on the basis of being able to choose one. And in Akroma's Will's case, you can choose one of the following. Creatures you control gain flying, vigilance, and double strike until end of turn, or creatures you control gain lifelink, indestructible, and protection from all colors until end of turn. In my view, each of these abilities taken on their own are just like complete blowouts, but Jordan is the one who put this on the list, so I'll toss it over to him.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. I looked at this card and I was like, I saw the word commander on it. I was like, and then I read it and then I saw that it was an instant and I got blown out of the water. I was like, this will just destroy combat one way or the other. Like giving your creatures flying and double strike or giving them indestructible lifelink and protection in when you're blocking or when you're attacking is just unreal. I think this card's a crazy blowout in like if you're playing like White Weenie, it can just turn all your 2/1s into 4 X's, right? That just kill them dead.
Yeah, but in White Weenie, isn't the 4 mana slot like super competitive already?
Well,
Is this something that you really want in there?
Well, for the 4 mana slots mostly reserved for your finishers as I've played it, so it's like this will kill them dead. So it's your Geddons and your like Elspeth Knight Errants that like jump your dudes and like +3/+3. So like I've tried the Regna's Sanction from Battle Bond.
Yeah, and that one's similar to this, but it's a sorcery, right?
I think it's a sorcery and it just taps all their dudes and then puts like counters on yours. I think this is a much better card and it's got offensive and defensive capability.
One thing I'd like to bring up that I think is probably going to be just for a lot of like these type of effects is the main criticism is like, well, if you play like 4 mana Gideon, like Ally as Zendikar, it affects the board. This card, if you draw it on like an empty board, it doesn't do anything. Is your mindset kind of evaluating this that, well, if you have an empty board and a White Weenie, you're probably already losing?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, so if you get Wrathed, you're probably losing anyway. Like,
yeah, just risk versus reward.
Yeah. And this card does protect against Wraths too. You can use it defensively.
Against red Wraths or something.
I was going to say that, yeah.
The fact...
I just...
Not just red Wraths, it gives them indestructible. It protects them against Damnation and Wrath of God and stuff like that too.
Yeah. I just legitimately think this card is just insane. Your opponent will always have to respect and play around this card.
Just before we give the letter grade, did anyone else read this card just like instinctively and say, yeah, pick a color, it gets protection from that color until end of turn, or was that just me?
I did the first time. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know. I was like, yeah, okay, because you it's most like things you're so in tune with. Just like, yeah, it's gonna be protection from a color, right? So, I like this card a bunch. Yeah, I like this card a bunch. Letter grades, I give it an A, like pretty easy.
I give this a really, really solid B+, and that is just on the principle that that like I mentioned earlier, this card does do nothing with an empty board, so it can become a dead draw sometimes, not very often, but the potential of it takes away the critical mass of threats that White Weenies have. So that is why I am reluctant to give it a full A, but I will give it a very solid B+.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you too. B+.
Yeah, I agree. B+, A-. I think it's not in every deck, but it's good in the decks it's good in.
Okay, next up is our second mythic of the review. So there's another cycle in this set that involves becoming the monarch, but is stapled to creatures. So the first among those is Archon of Coronation, which is a 6 mana 5/5 flying Archon. With enters the battlefield, you become the monarch, and as long as you're the monarch, damage doesn't cause you to lose life, which is very interesting. So unlike something like Platinum Imperion, which does not allow you to lose life, so therefore you cannot crack fetch lands and do other things like that. This says damage doesn't cause you to lose life, which is a pretty significant effect as well. Jordan, as somebody again who has played big white in the past, and this being a big white flying 5/5 that gives you the monarchy, what do you think?
I'm not blown out of the water by it. I definitely like the monarch as a mechanic, especially in one-on-one. It adds a lot to it, but they still get the monarch if they hit you, as I understand it. But
that's true. So damage doesn't cause you to lose life, but you still take the damage.
Yeah, so that's what I would have kind of wanted to see out of this, is that it keeps you the monarch unless they kill it, kind of. But
it just puts burn in the dumpster.
it's true, but on turn 6,
you're probably dead anyway.
You're near death or dying, so I'm not sure. I don't love it, but like I'd rather play like a Sun Titan or something.
That's fair. What about this in like a green-white kind of mid-range deck as an additional, not quite Palace Jailer effect, but additional effect that gives you the Monarchy?
So I was looking at this card in that lens because you play a few 6-drops in that deck, or the one I play at least. 6-drop is so like that card. The card you get from 6-drops in like green-white needs to win you the game or put you so far ahead that you do win the game. Like, I mean, the poster child of any single deck at 6-drop that involves green is like Primeval Titan. Like that's kind of the gold standard, really, because its floor is so high. The floor of this thing is that it enters the battlefield, they kill it, and you've spent like your entire turn tapping your mana dorks, and then they just play a thing, and then they just are like, okay, well now I have the Monarchy. And in green white, you're already pretty starved for ways to draw cards outside of like exactly Sylvan Library.
This finds more of a potential home in like a big white than like the green white shells.
Yeah.
And the important note of why I say that is because you're more than often not actually casting this card on turn 6. You're casting this generally on turn 3 or 4 because of all the acceleration you're doing, or casting it through prison effects. If you slam this early against like a red deck burns or a wins deck, even like a red deck a recall, your opponent is doing stone cold nothing.
I just want to address a few things as someone who plays, I think, a fairly sizable amount of green white. Your burn matchup is you hope if you walk into like an actual tournament and you're on green white mid range and you run into 7 burn decks, you're so happy. Knight of Autumn, Chef's Kiss. The other thing I'll say is that like the mana acceleration you get is honestly, this is gonna sound weird. You really try to get to 4 or 5. Your dorks die a lot. Dorks die a lot, and they die real quick. People I think now know in Calendar that like you have to respect mana dorks. Like they are very powerful, and they are kept under control. So like I'm a bit hesitant to sort of say, yeah, this would go into 6-drop slot, like, or even in green white. Like it doesn't fill a slot for me, honestly. Like it doesn't change the way I build the decker.
Okay, ratings, and then we'll move to the next card. I'm gonna put this at an A- solely on the benefit of the doubt. Just benefit of the doubt, A-.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I am on the almost opposite of the spectrum. I think this is like a C+. Maybe you could push me to a B-, but I'm really low on this type of effect.
I think I'm about where Alex is with it. I think it's like pretty close to being it, but it's not quite there.
I agree. I think it's in a C sort of situation.
Yeah, I will say though, if like to put a caveat, I could see myself just getting stomped by this card. So.
Mm-hmm. All right, next on the list, we've got Armored Sky Hunter, which is a 4-mana, 3/3 flying cat knight. It says whenever it attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may put an aura or equipment card from among them onto the battlefield. If an equipment is put onto the battlefield this way, you may attach it to a creature you control, and you put the rest of those cards on the bottom of your library in a random order. 4 mana, again, 4 mana in the decks that want to play this is a really competitive slot. But if you are all in on an equipment style like blade deck, I think this is a shoe-in.
So as someone who is currently building an all-in style blade deck with like 3 cards from this set, there is one thing on this card that is missing that makes me so angry. And I know it'd be broken, enters the battlefield.
Yeah, the fact that it has to attack.
It's so like, it's just someone says, okay, you tap out for 4 mana, which in that deck is kind of like the most you're hoping to ever go. Because there's so many free equip effects now that like the equip cost is pretty low, and like all the Skyclave style effects are obviously great. I just see every single game I play this, I cast it, opponent's like, okay, sure, kill it, like just bolt. So I want to, I still like it a bunch, but just the fact it doesn't say enters the battlefield just drives it down a full like letter grade.
Yeah,
for me.
and I also feel like it could have lost a point of power, gained a point of toughness.
Yeah, I mean,
pretty reliably. Yeah.
Well, it's also armored. Weirdly, I'm like, yeah, more toughness, less power, right?
Yeah, you would think that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes
Anyway.
sense. But I think the main point does still stand where if you're in a deck that is looking for equipment and auras, another card that helps you find them is probably something that you want to do.
Yeah, I think this is a density card. Like if you're playing that deck, you play this card because you need as many of those effects, like free equips as possible.
Yeah, so I think I'm looking at a B for this one.
Yeah, I'd say B plus. I mean, I will just say real quick, if this was 3, then it's like an A plus.
So busted, yeah.
Like Mana Crypt Isle or Mana Crypt Plains, you have to kill this thing this turn. If you don't, you're dead because I think you're gonna hit something.
That's one of the big things we're gonna see going forward, and I've already seen throughout this review is that since this is a commander focused set, cards are allowed to be strong, or at least stronger than they would be if they were in a standard set. But they're also costed more expensively, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. So they're not like they're moving one of those dials, moving the power up without and they're also moving the CMC up when really the CMC should have just been, more reasonable, like 3 mana for this creature.
I mean, flying is relevant. Like it is going to get in.
Flying is relevant, but so is a bolt.
Yeah, fair play to you.
It also dies to clip wings.
Oh,
just saying.
Canlander staple clip wings, baby.
Yeah.
Woo.
Speaking of not dying to clip wings, though, actually no, this doesn't actually help you because it says sacrifice a creature, doesn't it?
Amazing segue.
Okay. Anyway, so this helps you not die to prey upon. It's Benevolent Blessing. It's a 2 mana aura with flash, enchant creature, and as it enters the battlefield, you choose a color, and the enchanted creature has protection from that color. I don't know, even on a Lockstone Smiter, like you put a Lockstone Smiter into play, and then you just slap this thing on it, and you can just attack through whatever they have on the board.
You said the magic word. I actually am really high on this card. I think Abzan Stompy is a thing, like Abzan Enchantment Stompy.
Oh yeah.
Like
I didn't even think about putting this in.
But I thought that's where you were going with that. Oh no, this card's like in that, like in every other deck, this card's like a B, maybe C. In that deck, A plus. Like that deck's, it's insane in that deck.
I want to jam this in Sanctum Stompy for sure.
Yeah, bud. Yeah, that's my 2 cents. Card's decent. The thing with these types of spells that I'm always tempted to say, it's like a X counter spell, but like it really isn't. Like it counters a kill spell or like blows out combat, but I mean, I think this card is niche. Flash is obviously huge. Like Flash is insanely big. But yeah, I mean, I just like slapping this on Eidolon of 1,000 battles and going to town.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think you're right. I think this is a hard B plus.
I also agree. I think it's like similar to like an Apostle's Blessing, but sometimes if you're playing against like black green mid range or something, just turning off black or green, they're like, well, I'm stuck with this Maelstrom Pulse Abrupt Decay Assassin's Trophy in my hand that can never hit anything ever. So I agree. I think it's like a B plus.
Yeah, I mean, actually, random question. I was thinking, this seems like really good with a lot of Monarchy cards, like in the set.
Yes, it does. You can just get the Monarchy back basically with it.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of the design space for it in this set, like in a vacuum. But I think it does a very real home in Canlander.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay.
Next up.
Next one is another card in a cycle. It's the Court of Grace. So it's 4 mana for an enchantment. When Court of Grace enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you can create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. But if you're the monarch, you get to create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying instead. So this is another way at 4 mana to become the monarch. I think it's like the places that I'd like to see this is like Orzhov midrange or like Orzhov Planeswalker control kind of style decks. I can actually see this popping up in maybe like blue-white control, although I kind of favor the blue court over this one for that deck. But I'm really liking the ability to just kind of hold on to the monarchy and pump out 4/4s if you can.
It is worth noting that this is one of the few courts that, even because of the way the courts work, is that they do speak on your upkeep. That's minor if you don't have the monarchy, and then pretty big if you do.
Yeah.
I will say this is one of the few that actually helps you get the monarchy back. Yeah, because of flying. Cole, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Does this go in like a prison deck?
Oh yeah, this goes in like an Enchantress deck. It probably goes in prison style decks. I don't think I want this court in a prison style deck because they're not attacking and you aren't either. So I think it's less important in a deck that's playing like Ensnaring Bridge and stuff like that. But I think that any deck that like you are sort of controlling the board with.
Yeah.
And this is why I called out Orzhov Control too, because
Right.
that's exactly what you're doing, is controlling the board and making tokens for the matter, right? So I think that this is hitting both of those markers for you.
I mean, also worth noting, like, I realize the difference is obviously massive, and like I shouldn't be comparing the two, but this is Bitter Blossom on its own.
Oh, it's Bitter Blossom. It's why
Like,
Bitter Blossom,
it's-
yeah.
Right. So I mean, yeah, I like this in green white like tokens quite a bit,
Yeah.
but I mean, I'm unexcited by it. It's like, yeah, it's fine. Like it's
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying you should do this, but on the off chance you're playing a polymorph deck, this definitely creates tokens that you can then polymorph. So
oh my god, goes into your Boros polymorph planeswalker control deck.
yeah.
The other thing I really like about this card, low key, is that while yes, they are a little bit on the slow side, a 1/1 flying spirit is really good at taking the monarch back.
When I first saw this, I thought it'd be kind of neat to. I had like a little brainstorm vision, maybe like a blue-white artifact control deck where you like get to play this, and then you get to like Whir of Invention for Ensnaring Bridge, and then at some point you get to just like cast Time Spiral, fill up your hand, and attack and kill them, or something like you get a lot of signets and the talismans, and I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
gross.
I think it's good.
Yeah.
I'm not like super hyped to play it, but I think that it's worth playing.
I think
Yeah.
it's an A. I think this is our first like solid A.
I'm going B plus. I need to see more decks like it has an immediate home in that aren't like that aren't just like super niche. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I want this to be in a couple more decks first before I go like a prestigious A.
Totally fair enough.
I feel like if we're giving A's to things that just like go in a deck when you're in the color, I think this has to be in like a B plus range.
All right, next up we have another enchantment. Actually, we've got Promise of Tomorrow. So whenever a creature you control dies, exile it. At the beginning of each end step, if you have no creatures, you control no creatures, you sacrifice Promise of Tomorrow and return all creatures or all cards exiled to the battlefield under your control.
I really love the art on this card. I'm just gonna
The
throw
art
it
is
out there.
amazing.
Real
Yeah.
Powerful.
Seb
Canadian.
can't keep getting away with this. He can't.
I mean, I think Jordan and I talked about this a little bit, and every time I look at this card, I want to love it so badly. I can't. Maybe I'm missing. I just can't bring myself to love this card because like it is a 3-mana do nothing.
Yeah, it does stone nothing.
But I just the thing I keep envisioning, I keep coming back to is just like turn 3 this, and then just turn 4 just like Wrath everything, and then they come to the battlefield under your control.
That's true.
So it's like just I don't know. It's magical Christmas land, and you're hoping your opponent somehow manages to like flood the board by turn 3 with non-token creatures.
Mm-hmm.
But a man can dream. A man can dream.
So another thing that might be worth pointing out is so you mentioned that it does say under your control, return all cards exiled with Promise of Tomorrow to the battlefield under your control. So while it says a creature you control dies, exile it, you can technically take control of an opponent's creature, sacrifice it, and then make it yours.
Yes.
That's like a lot of work.
I know.
But
that's a lot of loop around.
That's a lot of work around. Yeah.
for an anime dead.
I know.
That's 1 mana more.
Well, I know it's a bit of a meme, but like I could see this almost like I've talked about Alex. I didn't really like it at the time, but now I'm looking at it and I'm like, maybe in Aristocrats where you play this and then you get to sack your like Blister Pod, it gets exiled, you still get your token, and then you get to sack that with Goblet Bombardment, and then like you get to sack your entire board that make tokens. Then at the end step they all come back and you get to sack them all again.
Yeah, I mean,
it seems all right.
Yeah,
maybe there's a creature there that returns a enchantment from your graveyard to the battlefield too.
Well, actually,
The important thing about it too is that it does says at the beginning of each end step.
Yes.
So you can just like sack your board, return them, and then in your opponent's turn, sack them again, return them, and just like loop it over and over again. I think you do definitely need to have like a sack outlet and a couple of creatures already in play to make it worth it. But it could be a huge blowout for just like just enough shape damage to just like grind through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I do like that potential a lot.
The card I compare this to for aristocrats is just is Living Death.
Honestly, yeah.
Similar, yeah.
Well, like, and I mean, I don't see them needing another one of those type of effects
No,
necessarily.
I don't either. I'm
So, like,
going to set it as
that's-
C for this one, I think.
Yeah, I'm honestly like, yeah, like
See.
C. I can see this card just being like, oh, it's insane. You just have so many board states where it's amazing.
I'd like to say it B. I think it's got some potential in decks where you're actively sacking your own creatures, whatever they may be.
I am down to give it a B- or a B. I do think that like in the aristocrats archetype, if you happen to be like in white as part of your aristocrat strategy, then it's an auto include. I do think the combo potential is just incredibly real.
Okay, our first blue card is Amphin Mutineer. It is a salamander pirate for 3 and a blue that says when Amphin Mutineer, that's a mouthful, enters the battlefield, exile up to one target non-salamander creature that creature's controller creates a 4/3 blue salamander warrior creature token. So basically, this is just like a blue shifted Necrotol. Like that's basically what it's doing. Because like chances are you want to use this on something that is, scary. So maybe, and there's no converted mana cost restriction on this a la Skyclave Apparition either, which kind of produces a similar effect. But like if you were to use this on, I don't know, like any old flyer, really, like a Dream Trawler on the off chance they have no cards in hand, like it becomes a 4/3 that this thing can then block.
Can I be honest?
Yeah.
I'm almost in the exact opposite realm. I thought you use this as like just basically to say, oh, my Snapcast has gotten value.
Oh yeah, you know what? You could do that too, couldn't you? You could blow up your own creature and make a 4/3.
I'm just thinking, man, this Bitter Blossom token's kind of outpowered now, and I'm like, I think there's actually, I almost thought the exact opposite. I thought you just kind of go like.
So you're looking at this like the development team did not look at Oko.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Well, like I really I think this I like this card's flexibility a lot. We also didn't talk about Encore, which is like 6 mana, which presumably you're never going to get to. But
this is actually our first card with Encore.
Yeah. So do you want to read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Perfect. Yeah. So Encore for 4 blue. Exile this card from your graveyard. For each opponent, create a token that attacks that opponent this turn if able. They gain haste, sacrifice them at the beginning of the end step, activate only as a sorcery. Obviously, that card's Encore is much better in EDH. That shouldn't be surprising. This is an EDH set anyway.
Yeah, in this set though, or in Highlander, it operates like Eternalize a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes you flood out and you don't have cards in hand, and a 4/3 or a 3/3 might get you there.
Yeah, or Unearth rather, but yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm pretty high on this card. I mean, I think this card's like fine. I don't necessarily see a home in it because the cards I named, I'm like, well, okay, Bitter Blossom and this don't really go in the same deck, but
you could be playing a blue-black deck that this would slide into, no problem. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I'm just gonna say I'm very this card's cool. I don't know if it's great. I mean, 4 mana 3/3 that maybe makes a thing bigger or maybe kills your opponent's big thing is fine, but I just imagine so many board states where your opponent has like a dork or whatever. And you're looking at this thing in your hand, you're like, oh god, what do I do?
That's fair.
Now, see, I don't think I see this as like a blue-black card. I do, however, see this as being really, really good in like a more dedicated, like a Simic or Sultai mid-range list, because those kinds of decks do get a extra value from their removal spells being creatures. I see this thing very much as kind of a fixed Oko, if that makes sense.
That's fair. I mean, they did a lot to fix Oko in this regard. Then
they did, yeah.
But making it not great.
I'm not sure. I don't know where it goes. I definitely think having Encore is is a big part of what makes it good, because like you get to use the ability twice. I just don't really know where it goes. Like your blue mid-range decks are kind of weird. Like it doesn't, you don't see a lot of them. And then even if you're removing something, like you don't want to give them a 4/3 anyway. If you could just like Venser or something for 4 mana, like, so I'm not sure. I don't love it. I would put it somewhere in like a B minus, C plus. Like you could play it. I just don't see a place for it.
Yeah, I'm with Jordan. Like you could. There's nothing stopping you from playing it. It's a Magic card that is playable, but I just don't see like there's no incentive to play it.
It's a good card for Pirate Tribal if you need
That is-
density in that regard. But speaking of Pirate Tribal, our next card is Azure Fleet Admiral. It's also 3 and a blue for a 3/3 human pirate creature. When it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch, and it can't be blocked by creatures the monarch controls. So speaking of cards that give you the monarch and sort of return it to you, this is one of those cards, right? So this is not a true name nemesis. It just can't be blocked, period. And has protection from everything that your opponents try to do to it. This does, however, just let you march through their board.
Yeah, like I put this on the list because I think like putting the monarch in the game is sweet, and then like being able to guarantee that you can get it back. Like I feel like if you see this on the other side of the table, you don't want to kill it. It's just like a 3/3. But if you're in a situation where you are trading the monarch, like 3 life a turn is like pretty relevant.
I do think, kind of to build off Jordan's point, this card definitely does like benefit from that feels bad protection, where you have a good removal spell in hand and you're like, God, I really don't want to waste on this uncommon from like a commander set. Like that definitely is a thing.
See, like honestly though, I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. I generally feel pretty good about like erasing my opponent's a 4 mana spell with a lightning bolt.
That's true, but they did get the monarch though, and you putting that lightning bolt towards that creature might not help you get it back. Does that make any sense? I don't know. Just like,
well, if their creature's gone, then like I can swing to them very easily, and like if they're casting a 4 mana thing, yeah, they draw a card, and that feels bad. You do want to stop them from drawing more cards, and I feel like a bolting their 4 mana spell is like a giant tempo swing in your favor, no matter how you look at it, regardless of like how like a powerful the 4 mana spell is on its own. If you're able to almost blank their turn with a bolt, I will almost always take that opportunity. It feels really good almost all the time.
Yeah, but we're assuming a lot. I mean, we're assuming that like
there's a lot of assumptions. Yeah.
Yeah, like you have a board presence, you are bolting presumably on end step rather than main phase. They did still draw a card, so it's not like it's never a completely dead card, which is always nice to these monarchy boys.
Like lowest form of this card is basically enters the battlefield, it dies.
Yeah.
And you still become the monarch.
Your opponent discards a fine to good removal spell.
Yep. So not awful. I'm gonna give it a B.
That's where I was gonna put it as well.
I like all 6 of my rigs, because I feel like I'm way below everyone. Like C's, like I would need to see them play first, ironically.
Yeah, I think that's about where I'm at.
Yeah, B's like a card that I can see having a home. Like, and A is like a card that I think is like a staple in a lot of decks now, or is like a card that I would actually want to play. I think this card's a C to B minus. I mean, I can absolutely see a deck that gets C's play in. But I just don't like. 4 is so competitive nowadays. I just don't know what I just don't know what it kicks out. So yeah, like I'm C B minus.
Okay, next card is Body of Knowledge. This one I added to the list like 5 minutes before we started recording. So Body of Knowledge is 5 mana, 3 and 2 blue for an avatar with Body of Knowledge's power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in your hand. You also have no maximum hand size, and whenever it's dealt damage, you draw that many cards. So this is one heck of a kind of like a wall, really.
Cole,
like, okay. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Cole, you don't need to lie to me. The reason you put this card on the list because you want to hit this card with a Shivan Meteor so badly.
Okay, all right. You know what? I wasn't gonna say it, but this, like, okay. So let's just set the stage a little bit here, right? So I could see this being played in like a control deck, maybe. Probably like I would try this in blue-white control. I think that's kind of the first place I would put it. You don't want to play this in tempo. It's 5 mana. The home for this card is in a control deck or a deck that can sort of outlast until you get to play a dumb idiot like this. But let me tell you why this is good. So in a deck like that, you have cards that put other cards in your hand. You have Ponders, Preordains, Brainstorm, stuff like that. Stuff that lets you draw cards. So you're going to have lots of cards in hand. So when you play this, it's already going to be like a 4/4 maybe, right? Your opponent is probably going to fling a removal spell at it. They bolt it. They hit it with a shock. Guess what? You get to draw 3 cards. You get to draw 2 cards, right? You're increasing the number of cards in your hand. It's still taking the damage, but you're getting something off of it. So in that sense, it's kind of functioning as a weird Consecrated Sphinx.
Yeah.
You know, like if Consphinx was rare, this is what it would be.
I mean, yeah, like I think kind of building off your point is, yeah, I mean, I think this needs to be in a control deck where you can control, I mean, obviously the pun there, but what creatures are on the board. Like
this is the replacement for Aeon Chronicler.
Oh my God. Yes. No, it's a replacement of Arcanus the Omnipotent. Yeah, like I mean, I think this card is really cool. I will say I do want to play it in like a blue-red like control deck
and just hit it with burn spells and draw ridiculous amounts of cards.
Oh, Pyroclasm on this bad boy, or just anger?
Pyrohemia.
Oh, Pyrohemia. Ooh, that's an enchantment, isn't it?
Yeah, so then it deals 1 damage to each creature and each player.
Oh, okay. No,
you just pump all the red mana that you have into it.
All right, you said Pyrohemia. You said Pyrohemia. This card's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, card's A+. Pyrohemia in this card, A+, can't beat it. GG. Jordan, what are you thinking?
I think there's definitely something to be said these days, because I've been around that long, that it's 5 mana and it doesn't die to Fatal Push. So
that's a good point, actually. Yeah.
So like a lot of the removal running around is Fatal Push. Like there's a lot of decks that have cut Go for the Throat and Doomblade and things like that for Fatal Push, and this doesn't die to that. And everybody's trying to have 1 mana removal, so your bolts, like, it's gonna feel bad if this gets like
they just recall. Yeah,
but like I don't know.
Yeah,
I will say I just have this cold sweat nightmare of cast this card on 5. My opponent just goes, how many cards in hand? Yeah, and then just mind twist you into the dirt. But
that would be so sad.
Yeah, that's a nightmare for another time.
It's a 2/2. They hem you.
Oh God.
You lose your hand and your creature.
I dig it.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna hand this an A.
Yeah, A, because you mentioned Pyrohemia.
Yeah.
I'm in a B sort of case.
All right.
Joe's gonna be the voice of reason.
Julian.
I'm gonna give it a C- because I'm incredibly picky about what a 5 mana tap out spells I put in a control deck.
Our next card is the second court in the court cycle. It's Court of Cunning. So it's 3 mana, 1 and 2 blue for an enchantment, and when it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. So like the Court of Grace, it has an effect if you are the monarch on your upkeep, and 1 if you aren't. So at the beginning of your upkeep, any number of players each mill 2 cards. So that could include you or your opponent or both of you. If you're the monarch, each of those players mills 10 cards instead. So once again, if we're putting this in a control shell or a prison shell for that matter, it's a pretty decent win condition. Like milling 10 cards a turn in a 100-card format will take you a long time, but all the while you are removing answers from their deck, threats, and slowly killing them, right? This is a 10-turn clock if it's turn 3 when you play this.
I thought you were going to go the angle of this is really consistent self-graveyard feel for like a Dredge or Delve style deck.
That's true. That's true, but I would only be comfortable. Yeah, maybe. You know, it could be ridiculous in a Dredge deck or in a deck that wants to play out of the graveyard. Like I could see playing this in, like, if I was playing an Academy deck and I was working towards a Open the Vaults.
The sort of Sultai graveyard value deck where you're just like, well, I'm going to sacrifice a bunch of things to Birthing Pod and try to get them back through reanimate spells and just kind of keep grinding away that way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this feels Delve.
Low key, I really like this in like a Sultai mid range kind of shell. I think this card makes your Drown in the Locks look really, really good.
Oh, that's true.
And it makes spells like a Dig Through Time and like a Cruise and Uro look really, really good, and Tombstalker and Angler. Like this seems like a really solid UBX mid-range control kind of shell card.
Jordan, what are you thinking?
I really like this card. It really gives me a vibe of Jace Memory Adept. Like,
Yeah, kinda.
So that was for a
Emo
long
Jace.
Yeah, that was for a long time really taboo to play in Cube, because like you're playing 40 card decks and it kills you in 3 turns. But I feel like this is similar. You could play a mill deck in Cube with this, but it also has some interaction, so you're not just dying to this Planeswalker. So like I feel like in Cube it'd be a cool card, and I think it's got potential in Highlander. It's just sometimes milling your opponent deals more damage to you than to them if they're like casting Dig Through Time or Cruise. So I think you usually want to hit yourself with it.
Yeah, that's I didn't even think, because I thought if you hit your opponent, like your opponent's like, okay, cool, I'm playing Reanimator, idiot.
Yeah.
Thanks for the free draw 10.
So grades.
I can see it as a B or a B minus. Like it's definitely playable. I would have to find something to slot it into.
Yeah, my same thing. C minus, or sorry, C B plus. Sorry, oh my god, B minus C plus. Geez. Yeah, same deal. I would need to see it and see how consistently you can hit that 10. And I mean, if you're just using it if you cast Dig Through Time and Treasure Cruise off, I think it's an A, right? But I think I just need to see it in action first before I really make a judgment call.
Jordan, why don't you talk about this one?
So this is Hull Breacher. It's 2 and a blue for a 3/2 Merfolk Pirate with Flash, and it has the ability, if an opponent would draw a card except the first one they draw on each of their draw steps, instead you create a treasure token. I saw this card and I was blown out of the water. Oh my god. Like I'm absolutely ready to just hit somebody's brainstorm with this. They draw no cards.
They
put 2 back and you get
so
3
bad.
mana. Like, or like if somebody Jaces and you're like, haha, play this, same thing, but then you get to kill their Jace and you're like, up mana. Like this card is bananas.
Is this card, because I agree with Jordan. I think this is a slam dunk A, right? But is this card in contention for best card in the set? Like early?
Yeah, I think it is.
I think this is maybe the black one we'll see earlier.
A certain black card we'll see.
Yeah, which is
I would absolutely call this one of the best cards in the set. But even further, I would call this probably the rudest card that WotC could have ever printed.
No, that's the other one. That's the other one.
No. And hear me out. This card does everything that Smothering Tide wishes it could do.
Yeah.
And this is an effect that like White had, and had this like amazing thing going for it. And like I'm not even just talking about EDH. This also applies to Canlander. I think printing this card was a slap in the face to every White deck ever.
And Legacy, for that matter.
Oh yeah, Legacy screwed. I mean, I will say this. I will say Tithe does not die to shock, but
this should have been a 3/1, I think.
Yeah.
It should have been Notion Thief stats.
Imagine somebody casting this in response to a wheel.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, it's going in my Nekasar deck for sure.
Oh
yeah. It's going in every base blue commander deck I ever play.
Oh, this card's busted. This card's like you play this in mid range. You play this in like flash decks. Obviously now are much better. I think Esper Flash is getting there. Yeah, Tempo. Like this card is a almost slam dunk auto include in any deck.
It slices and dices.
Best Jace Assassin I have ever seen.
It's an insane Jace Assassin, and it's on curve for you if they play Jace on 4, and you're like, just get wrecked.
So also real quick, Cole, kind of going back to your thing about like it should have been 3/1. Like it should have also been true name CMC or mana cost. Should have been 1 blue. This card's nuts, and for 1 blue.
Yeah. I think this card is just way too easy to cast.
Oh yeah.
Like will play this card 100%, but I'm gonna feel like a dick every
Like-
time I cast it.
Like you probably play this card in an artifact deck too, where you're just like, free artifacts for the cards you would have drawn. Seems great.
Yeah, man, you play it in every blue deck. This card is just too good to not play. I
Right.
I think this is like an A+.
This is an A+.
I think
plus.
this is our first A+.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like-
Slam dunk
Easily.
and everything.
Hey,
Easily.
Cole,
Slam
just
dunk.
real quick, just to make you really happy. I just wanted to envision you on your end, if your opponent casts Brainstorm and you flash this in, you have Academy in play.
Yeah, seems crazy. It's
Yeah,
make,
just net-
make 6 mana. Yeah, it's insane. All right, let's move on to our next card before we get all hot and bothered here.
Too late.
Too late, yeah.
All right,
Too
so
late.
this is one of, if not my favorite card from the set. Laboratory Drudge is 3 and a blue for a 3/4 zombie whore. With at the beginning of each end step, draw a card if you've cast a spell from a graveyard or activated an ability of a card in a graveyard this turn.
this is really
So-
cool.
It's
I really
really
like this
cool.
card.
It's really cool. It's like I'm not convinced it's very good, but it's my favorite card from the set. I think
It
This
does
be-
have my favorite flavor text from the set.
Many hands make light work.
Yeah.
Ludwig. Ludwig.
I think this would be really sweet as like a cube card if you're really leaning into like a graveyards matter sort of thing. Like if you've got the density of like think twice or something like all these little cantrips or things that
Yeah, because then it's just a burning vengeance, basically,
Yeah.
but better. Yeah.
Does this works how I think it does with Dredge, correct?
no
Yeah. No
puts
trigger.
It doesn't.
It does not. Okay, I was gonna say that's
Yeah.
because that's the one place I could see it.
Oh wait, hey. Hold on.
Or, yeah.
Are you saying that like you can
Yeah.
proc Dredge with this? Because you can.
No,
for sure.
no, I know. Well, I know, yeah, because it
Yeah,
draws a
because
card.
you draw the
but-
card. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but if this card is in play and I say, okay, on my draw spot, I would like to Dredge 3 to get back life from the loam.
It's a
That's
then-
not.
triggered
that's not an
ability.
ability.
Yeah, it's not
free
about. Yeah,
ability,
okay,
yeah.
yeah. I was gonna say. I
That
was
would just
hoping.
make this insane, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my thought. Was I'm like, if this card does that, it's an A+. But if it doesn't, I mean, how many cards? Okay, so how many cards do you want this to draw to make it good?
I think if this drew 3 cards over its lifespan, it would be great. But given it's a 3/4, I think you'd be able to do that before it dies. Like
I would like.
it does block like decently well.
It's below
um,
vanilla curve.
It's below vanilla curve, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. I
Honestly,
feel like
It does make me sad that we're not talking a little bit about EDH because I think Muldrotha loves this card with a
Oh yeah,
passion.
and so does Kess. But
But yeah, no, Cass is sick with it. But in Canlander though, it also gets value from like your Snapcaster mages, which is
yeah, Snapcaster becomes really good.
really-
Anything with
really super
flashback
nice.
is really good.
But
yeah.
did Snapcaster need help to be really good?
No,
Like
Well, no.
that's kind of putting a hat on a hat, you know.
It's true. It's very true. You're right.
All
And like at 4 mana, yeah. And nah, I'm not gonna use the dice removal argument. That's a stupid argument. I'm not doing it unless it's warranted. But like I do feel this thing needs to draw a couple of cards to be like actually worth its mana cost.
Yeah.
But I think in the decks that like are going to be playing it, it'll get that value super easily. It is important to note, perhaps, that that if by some means you cast this from the graveyard, it does proc itself.
That's interesting. That's
And
very
that
interesting.
that is, I think, worth a mention at the very least. Maybe not an important one, but it's worth a mention.
I hate the fact that it's not just like if a creature entered the battlefield or you cast a
Yeah.
spell or like ability. Because like if it was creature just like enters the battlefield, then we have a very real conversation about this card
Oh, for
in like
sure.
in like a Saltice or like in Balmy style mid range deck. But the fact that it doesn't have that.
Actually, what makes me really sad that I have to say this. This card seems really good with Uro.
Oh, you had to do it, didn't you?
I
You had to
really
say the U
did.
word. Yeah.
I really did, but like this card seems like it makes an objectively dumb card even dumber, and like I do think those are worth mentioning at the very least because cards that like push already good cards are part of what makes Canlander what it is. But I did have to say it, and I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
it it does seem like it makes Uro just such a ridiculous engine, even if it already was a ridiculous engine.
That's true.
Also,
Okay,
sorry,
yeah.
one little note. I think this also could maybe be good in like the zombie travel deck, because you get your
Oh,
like
for sure.
grave crawlers and things like that. So like, I don't know, like not amazing, but it's played worse
Fine.
cards.
I wish it was a 4/4. That's my only thing, is I wish it just passed the vanilla test.
Yeah, me too. I do wish that. You're right.
Wait, what do we do grades for this?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I said like C, B, like B minus again. Like I can, maybe even D plus. Like
yeah.
Like a C minus.
I'm gonna give it a B minus as well. I think I'm fine with that.
I'll sit at C with it. I think I can sit pretty at C. Okay,
Oh God.
we have
Jesus.
one of the most expensive cards in this set, and it's part of a cycle. It's Mnemonic Deluge. For 6 and 3 blue, you get a sorcery with exile target instant or sorcery card from a graveyard, not just yours. Copy that card 3 times. You may cast the copies without paying their mana costs, and then you exile Mnemonic Deluge. What do you think?
Oh God, this card.
The reason I'm going to not hesitate and give this card a solid B is because I see a very clear home for this card when I look at it. This is a high tide card.
Oh yeah,
through and through.
You bet.
Also, I love the art, but also like if you just needed a really, really big spell to hit off high tide, this has got to be it.
Yeah, and what do you exile in the graveyard that makes this playable in high tide?
Most definitely Turnabout, because like you just get to like untap, then float mana, then untap, then float mana, then untap, and you have like a million mana at this point. Like it just seems like a really obnoxiously easy way to just like immediately get all the mana you could possibly need to do exactly what High Tide wants to do.
Or and hear me out, you have a Hull Breacher in play, and you recently discarded a Time Spiral into your graveyard.
Oh Jesus.
Times.
Yep.
Okay. How often does that happen? Time Spiral exiles itself.
I mean, I will just very briefly be like, the fact this is a graveyard does give it a non-zero amount of flexibility. It's so minor because you obviously want to target your own, but like, I mean,
Really
hey, Warleader's Helix is a card that goes to the graveyard.
You can just 9 somebody with that, yeah. Or you could Searing Wind 3 times.
Oh my God, Cole. Why are you like this?
Sometimes even, like, you can just Demonic Tutor 3 times.
That's true. You could also Demonic Tutor, yep.
But, like, it has a very, very clear home in the blue combo decks that, like, are doing things like that. And for that reason, I think it would be a criminal to give this anything less than a B.
Jordan, what are you thinking?
I'm not sure I see it. Like, if you're already at 9, I'm not, like, blown away.
Yeah, you should just win the game from
Yeah, because, like, I can forget exactly how the High Tide deck wins, but, like, it
Well, no. You cast it after like you high tide, and then no matter what you've got, you have a bridge into your combo from any stage in the game. It means that you have to tutor 1 time for the high tide, and then use that mana to cast this, and then go off, no matter what.
Yeah, and I personally don't see it. Like, I think if you're at 9 or 10, like you can win the game already. Like, you don't need to. But like there's other ways to tutor and to do things in that deck. So I'm not sure. I'm going like, I'm not completely disagreeing with you. I'm going like C plus, but I'm not. I don't
Sure.
Well, our next card is Sakashima's Protege. It's 4 and 2 blue for a 6-mana 3/1 with Flash and Cascade. You may have Sakashima's Protege enter the battlefield as a copy of any permanent that entered the battlefield this turn. So it can copy planeswalkers, it can copy enchantments, artifacts, anything you can imagine, and even lands too, which is not nothing. So in the deck, like, I'm not saying that that like every control deck wants this or every deck that can play it wants it, but you know, if your opponent is trying to make a 2020 Merit Lage, the Flash and the Cascade off of this, let's talk about how that works a little bit. So basically, Cascade will be put in the stack when then the spell is cast, and the card that you cascade into will be cast before and resolved before this does. So if you're doing like a Hail Mary play where you're like, I need 2 creatures for whatever reason, and you cascade into the first one, and then you get this one to copy that one, or just enter as itself, because it does have that may clause in the copy ability.
Yeah. I mean, this having flash offsets the fact that it's 6 CMC.
Yes, it does. Very much.
Pretty incredibly. The fact it's also any permanent can be insanely relevant. I'm so glad that it just be like, yeah, it has to be a creature. I mean, like I just all I want to do is just flash this in.
Copying a True Nemesis.
Yeah.
Seems okay. Yeah.
We'll copy True Name or just copy something else with like a stupid ETB effect that you don't usually get 2 of in a game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I like this card a bunch. I like to pick up a copy. I don't have too much more to say about than that. I mean, it's got Cascade, it's got Flash, it can copy what's called Jace.
What do you think, Jordan?
I think this is neat. Like, it sort of offsets the like the problem that it's like, okay, if your opponent's playing something sweet and you copy it, you're still down a turn usually. But like, it gives you Cascade, so you get the copy and you get something else, whatever it may be. So like, I think this is sweet.
Like, I can't see this playing this obviously in like Flash decks. I mean, I again do want to try and put together Waterfalls.
You see this as a B for sure, yeah.
Yeah, I think like I would give it a B minus. Because the end of the battlefield this turn, I can see that this card being dead in your hand quite a bit and just cascading like a rampant growth, which is meh.
Yeah.
Like a talisman in Academy.
All right, let's move along. Sphinx of the Second Sun. Jordan, you added this one to the list.
Okay, I think this is probably one of the sweeter reanimator targets we've gotten in a while. Like, so like you get to do whatever you got to do to put this in the bin. You get to reanimate it, and then you get to untap and draw and have mana to protect it with your Spell Pierce or your Flusterstorm or whatever, as well as like just drawing an extra card, which is sweet. I think this card's awesome in Reanimator, but that's about it.
You can even just pay retail 8 for it and then untap. Like, that seems not like a non-zero thing.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Jordan. I mean, the biggest downfall of when I play Reanimator, and I play the very traditional like Esper Reanimator where you're splashing white base for like swords, wrath, and
Unburial Rights.
Yeah, burial rights off gifts ungiven. You're just like, okay, I've got the setup. I just have to cast Reanimator spell, and then like, okay, I'm tapped out. But as long as they don't have 2 removal spells, I'm fine. And then they just have Path Swords. And yeah, just the fact this always is valued. This card is also my top choice right now for best wings in the set.
It also bothers me, and it'll probably stop me from playing this card, that it's off center. Yeah.
Now that I
Oh my
see
god,
it, I'm
thank
angry.
you. It drove me insane when I first saw this too. Yeah.
The rule of thirds, guys. The rule of thirds.
Yeah. I mean, I love this card. Like, I agree with Jordan. It's Reanimator, I think, only. So like B plus for that. I think it's insane that the deck it goes in.
I think it's an A. I think it's great in the Reanimator deck. That's where you want it, but it's not
I think
slam dunk and everything.
Yeah, like my B is usually like it's an A in the deck it wants it in, but like it's just fine everywhere else.
Yeah,
like that's kind of my
maybe
metric of it.
maybe A minus. Yeah.
As a judge, something kind of bothers me a little bit about like them creating a new term in beginning phase. But I understand it plenty. I just think it like looks sloppy, personally. But I understand why it's there. I think overall the card is like probably pretty sweet.
Yeah, I will say on the beginner phase thing, they have been trying to phase that in. It's on a lot of the like turn reminder cards and like
It is.
and in
Yeah.
It's like how combat encompasses like declare attackers, blocks, whatever. It's sort of your beginning phase as your untap, your upkeep, your draw.
Yeah, it's like usually when you're playing a game and your opponent's tapped out, you go like untap, upkeep, draw. Like it's very similar. Yeah. I
understand Sensei's don't like it, but I'm gonna give the card a solid B plus. I think it's very powerful.
Yeah, I think if the deck really wants it, if you're putting it, like, you only play this if you can cheat it into play.
Yeah.
You only play this if you're not paying a mana for it. And in those decks, I think it's really good. And that brings us to the end of Blue and the end of Part 1. We'll be back to talk about the rest of the set in Part 2. But until then, you can tell us about any cards that we missed in the comments below, or tell us what ratings you think are wrong. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.